part of me thought that I wasn't gonna like physically be seen in Nickel Boys at all. And I was still like, yeah, I'll do it. Like this is because it's really good.
Just his energy as a person, I think he's so open and so curious and so collaborative and wants everyone to be a part of it, that everyone then reacts and responds to that. And he's just so like, his, like I think you were saying earlier, his confidence is just like infectious.
Yeah.
So everyone responds to that and they're like, and everyone shows up and is there for one another and also is there to make this thing, and it becomes like this harmonious, lovely thing that just magically kind of comes together.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Ethan Herisse and Brandon Wilson are the stars of the new film Nickel Boys. I sat down with them in New York City to talk about the work.
Where were you guys in your life and career the day before you first heard about this project? And Ethan, we can start with you.
This definitely came at a great time because I was in college. It was supposed to be it was the beginning of my last year in college. I was getting my degree in chemistry. And we can curse, you said?
Absolutely.
I was getting my shit rocked. Like I was in 2 labs. I was in 2 labs at the time and they were pretty difficult. I was in an inorganic chemistry class. It was difficult. I was struggling. I was gonna make it. I was gonna be all right, but I was struggling. And career-wise, I was just doing a bunch of auditions, none of which I can really remember before the audition for Nickel Boys came. None of which I feel like really, I felt like really kind of attached to. I knew that I wanted to work, like I'm doing the audition for a reason, but it's not very often that I'll come across something and send a tape out and be like, oh gosh, I really want this, like, or oh gosh, I hope I hear something back, or it's more like doing the self-tape and doing the audition is how I'm getting better, kind of getting those reps in and working with the material and characters and stuff. So I was at a place where I was auditioning, hoping for the best, but I had school and was kind of living my life at that point in time.
Wait, let me ask you a question. And I don't even want to ask this in the past tense because you just graduated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is acting your passion? Is chemistry your passion? Are they both your passions? Are you going to school to get a degree because you want to be a responsible person? Because this business is very, volatile.
I need to get a degree as a responsible person, and I wanted to go to college, not only for myself, but for my family. That's always something that they wanted for me. It was always something that I wanted myself, to just have that experience of moving out, going to college, meeting new people, going through that. Chemistry was just, I went undeclared, so I was taking like a bunch of general education classes. I took a chem class and I was like, oh yeah, I took AP Chem in high school and it made sense. And this Gen Chem class is making sense as well. Maybe I can keep doing it. And I was intrigued in being in a lab and working. I found it intriguing, but I wouldn't say I was passionate about it. Acting is definitely what I feel passionate about and what I would like to, if I am lucky enough, I would like to just continue doing for as long as I can.
And what about you, Brandon? Where was your frustration level at with auditions?
I would pass a lot because just for the sake of cussing, there's just a lot of shit out there, isn't it? Yeah. A lot of shit.
Okay.
Just so much stuff that you feel like you can read it and see on the page that the priority is money, or the priority is this very direct message that they're trying to tell people. And there's no nuance, there's no life, there's no joy, there's no playfulness. It's just like, you can read on the page, like, this is how it's supposed to feel. This is how you're supposed to do it. This is how people are supposed to feel when they see it. And you're like, oh, okay. What do I do? I just come in and like have to, you know, force these emotions and like make it be a little puppet. And there's very little life in that. So yeah, I end up passing a lot when I read stuff like that. And then actually it's funny because that you said like you do them sometimes because you feel like the reps. Because it's funny, sometimes like when I haven't done a tape for so long, I'm like, I don't know if I actually get a tape that I want to do, I'm like, am I gonna actually remember what I'm supposed to do? Kind of like some of the freedom of a self-tape, as opposed to, because like I've been doing it since I was little. So like I used to go into the rooms, which I only miss sometimes. There was only a very few handful of casting directors that like when I would go into a room, they'd actually make me feel like a person and like actually make you feel like they want you in the room, or at least that like you're actually going to share a moment together. When like so often it's like you go in and they couldn't care less like that you're there, and you're like, oh, why am I here? What am I do? Like, it's the strangest thing. But there's actually Vicky Thomas, who casted this one, was one. I'd been going to her for a couple of years, but she always made me feel like a person in the room, and like
she wants to work with you.
Yeah, and she wants to explore the thing. And like,
why is this so rare? You know, why is that so hard? If that helps the actor bring it out, why not do that?
I'm not sure where it does. Yeah, it does. And at least, you know, if it doesn't work out the way you wanted to, at least you're able to go in the room and play and feel like you were seen. Yeah. Feel like maybe you've gotten a little bit better, whether that be like as an actor or as just a person in this industry, because you feel like a kind of bond may have been formed.
Yeah, or at least you feel like you shared space with another human being for a moment, rather than just feeling like a cog in a wheel, and you're like, okay, this is just part of their
where
like right when you walk out, they're like, next, and you're like,
where that like that kind of like, you know, that feeling of maybe they don't care as much, or it's kind of like they don't work with you or whatever, kind of stopped worrying about where that might come from a long time ago, because it's just like, all right, well, there's only so much that you can control.
Yeah.
And so if it could be, I could spend time thinking like, well, maybe I'm not what they wanted, I don't like the look, or I didn't do well enough, or blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, well, if it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be.
Oh yeah. And sometimes you can just, you walk into a room and immediately like, you're just like, oh, they're just not here.
Right.
Like, you're just like, there's not even, I didn't even change the room when I walked in. Like, they just weren't here even before I came in. So now you still go in and just do the thing, and you're like, when you walk out, and you're like,
start,
yeah.
You know, you should change. Every actor should change the room when they walk in it, and if that's not happening, you know, I feel like maybe that it is good that this is the one thing that's overhauled, and that we don't have that many rooms anymore. Like, maybe that's a good thing.
That is fair. You kind of get this. There is like I've kind of, when talking about sending the tape for Nickel Boys, like I kind of make a joke about like, I sent the tape into the ether, because it's kind of what it feels like. You just send it out, and you never know what's going to happen. And that is kind of a better feeling, because if it is something that they don't watch or they skip over, it's like you are kind of, at least you've truly done as much as you can do, and it's out of your control when you've sent it. It's a lot easier to, I think, move forward in life without having to like, you know, ponder on it or worry about what the interaction or lack thereof that may have happened in a room.
In defense of the casting directors, you know, they got to come. There's a bunch of people coming in and saying the same thing over and over again, and they can,
absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure it can get crazy. So maybe I come in and I'm like the 50th person of the day, and they're just like,
that's true. I couldn't imagine being in their shoes, but the thing is, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like I'm not too stressed about it when I think what really matters is the material and my connection with it. it's not very often that I've had that interaction with, maybe when I was younger, but that kind of interaction with the casting director where it's like I may have been their 50th person and there's just not really a connection there. And it's like something that I like desperately wanted. It's a very, I feel like it's a bit of a kind of a privilege to feel that way. I mean, so I'm considering that now.
I wonder if my feeling sometimes is, even when I would go into the room, it's like, I don't necessarily like love this thing that I'm gonna be reading for. And like maybe I'm also feeling like they're like, yeah, me neither.
That is another,
But you're like, I get to go play, and so it's like it changes the whole energy of the room. And like you go in and you start to play, but I go in and I'm like, oh, and they're like, no.
that is yeah. I do wonder about that as well. If it's just like maybe they just don't feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like a mutual thing where it's like they don't really like each other.
And that's why like when you actually get
at each other.
Yeah, you're just like,
It's like we can just keep this pushing. Like
yeah, I think maybe then the few times that I actually have felt that like actual connections, like when I go in and I'm like, this is something good, and they're like, this is something good. So they're like really trying to make it as good as possible. So they're like really listening to everyone who's coming in and really open and really curious, and you feel that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, then we can get in just a deeper conversation about just what's being presented to us and like the material that we're being given and just the state of the industry as a whole when it comes to, you know, that material. Part of me thought that I wasn't gonna like physically be seen in Nickel Boys at all, and I was still like, yeah, I'll do it. Like this is because it's really good.
So wait, Ethan, if you had that thought that you may not be seen in the movie, what did you know about the way this was going to be shot when you went into the audition?
Because it was in the script. It said like, you know, it's littered with like Elwood POV or Turner POV. But it was like I mostly on the first, I was ignoring it, but I would mostly see like Elwood with a POV next to it. And so like there was that thought like in the back of my mind, like, oh, okay, this is off camera for a lot of it, but it just didn't matter to me. Like I was still gonna do the tape. Like it's not like they were asking me to do the tape off camera or anything. Right. And like in the chemistry read, I got to actually be there with like Brandon. We didn't know what it was actually going to be like really until we kind of got there and started talking to RaMell about it a bit. But yeah, it was just doing those scenes. I was like, oh yeah, this is something that I can really like get into, and it felt like I was getting into it. And then that feeling was confirmed when I got into the chemistry read with Brandon, and we were given like freedom to like play around and like work with each other in that space. Like that was a confirmation of like, all right, well, I like my feeling was right. This is very good. It feels very good to do. And yeah, if it's like, if the world where I get it is one where I'm not really like seen, cool. Like it's I want to go to work and I want to work with something good.
Was this confirmation because you had other chemistry reads that didn't go as well?
That was my first chemistry read.
First chemistry read. What about you? Were you reading with other people at all, Brandon?
I did one other chemistry read. Yeah, they flew me down to New Orleans and I did a chemistry read with another actor. And yeah, I mean, similarly, I was just excited to be in another room. I mean, in a room with another person and get to like play. Yeah. And I thought he was great. And yeah, he was good. He was good people. We went at it for like we did majority of like the longer scenes that are in the film. We were doing it for like 4 hours.
Crazy.
In this room. And like, yeah. And I was like, afterwards, I remember getting back to LA, and I think at that point I still didn't know that I had gotten the role, but my manager was like, yeah, you're still very much in it, but there's
4 hours.
Yeah. They were like, you're still very much in it, but I think they're gonna go look for another Elwood. And I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I didn't tell my manager, but I was like, I already did the whole movie for like 4 hours. Like I did it. I got the thing. I'm fulfilled. I'm happy. Thank you. Yeah. And then like a week later, they're like, okay, they want you to come do a chemistry read in LA. So then I went and met Ethan,
What was the differences in terms of the, like, not just the people are different, but what was the, did they learn from that first read and change things? And was it 4 hours?
It did not.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't 4 hours.
Not 4 hours.
And I don't know if that's because they intended for it to be shorter, or there was something different about Ethan. Like I couldn't vocalize what they were looking for and what they maybe didn't think
That's
they
why it was
got.
4 hours. They didn't have the right guy.
They were trying to figure it out the first time. They were trying to make it work, I think. And so we would leave the room and they would talk, and they had the other actor talk to the cast director who was in New Orleans for a little bit to try to play with it differently. Yeah, but they kept trying to have it work. And I think when I got into the room with Ethan, even I saw something that I couldn't put into words, but I was like, oh, I don't know what they were looking for, but I was pretty sure that they had found it. And I was like, this does feel different.
Did what you were receiving there change you? Do you know what I mean? Like in the first one, you spent 4 hours with this guy that you thought was pretty good, but then you come here with this guy, and it's different, and you can't put your finger on it. But did that change your DNA about the way you're approaching this, and can you explain how?
The simple answer is yeah, absolutely, it did change. How is the more complex part of that question.
I always say when an actor can't answer something like this, that maybe they shouldn't answer it, and I mean, there's some things that maybe shouldn't be talked about. I think that's why sometimes I think this is a weird podcast. Because, I almost don't want you to answer that because I'm worried that next time, it won't be available to you.
That's okay. I'm confident that I'll never figure it out. So we can talk about it as much as we want. I don't know.
I got to remember that. That's good. That's good.
I know actors get this, but I'm not sure if people who aren't actors understand how hard it is to act to the camera all the time. And, and I'm kind of shocked that they didn't prepare you for this, and they weren't worried about not preparing you for this.
I think RaMell jokes about that sometimes. He's like, I just didn't want to tell anybody. Just let them, I don't want to scare them off.
Yeah.
No, I think that them not being concerned, them not feeling any stress from anyone beforehand and kind of being talked about like it was a completely normal thing that we're going to dive into, made me at least feel like, all right, then this is a completely normal thing that we're about to jump into. It obviously it was different. It was going to be difficult while we were figuring it out. But so much of it is hindsight. I think I was talking to someone out there, and I was like, it's a bit of hindsight because when we get there, we're there to work. We're there because we have a job to do.
And I got no job.
I guess, okay, but I guess, but you know what I mean? It's there's not. It's only after the fact that I can look at it and be like, oh, I guess that was a little crazy. Maybe that's a little crazy. That's how we went through this whole process. But I think that we were always going to figure it out because we had to. Yeah. It's the way that we were meant to do this thing that we got brought on board for. So I don't know. It's I think it had its difficulties towards the beginning, but once we got into it.
Explain those difficulties though, because I'm just imagining what I would have to do because I don't have the eyes that I'm looking into. I would have to kind of erase the lens and place the eyes there somehow, but it feels like such a hard thing to do, like that erasure of the lens staring at me, just because but I need those eyes so badly to be able to connect.
It's a bit of tricking yourself a little bit, letting it still in the same way that you would allow yourself to be present and fade away in a scene. It's still that. You've just kind of got to do the extra thing of make the camera also, even though you're playing right to it, also has to fade away. And also has to kind of become, like you said, like this face, these eyes. And we worked with the scenes before. We would, go and we would at least get comfortable with the words and like just do them together before, like in our trailers or something. And that would help kind of inform like how Brandon may have, reacted to this one line that Elwood said, or in this, moment. Helps that we were there, and in the scenes, like we're still physically there and able to speak to, like he was saying the lines and still present. So it wasn't like there was nothing.
Right.
And where was he? Was he off camera or?
It was on camera person's back.
Interesting.
Like often, most of the time when it was our scenes, it was Jomo. Sometimes Sam, sometimes RaMell, mostly Jomo. But yeah, he'd hold the camera and I would just be very just like on his back. Or he would be on his back, whoever was off camera, yeah, would just be very close. So like, just so our presence was as close to that eye line as possible.
Oh, that's good. At least you had the lines fed to you by the person. I was worried that for some sound reason, they weren't able to have the actual lines fed to you. That would have been...
Oh, that would suck.
Really, almost like, it was really almost everything was normal except for the fact that it was all being played to camera. That was the which is a bit it's a big not normal, but it helped a lot that everything else was. Yeah, it was just about just letting it all. It's again. It sounds like kind of like gaslighting yourself. Like there's not a camera there. Like but that really was the feeling. I don't know. There's no other.
Maybe
way to
it
describe
helped that like because of this process we got to get so close to Jomo, the cinematographer, and maybe that did help remove some of the, maybe only a little bit, like remove some of that like kind of intrusiveness of the staring down the lens. Like that feeling that you can get when you're not looking at the lens, like when that pops in your head sometimes, like, oh right, I'm on camera, like I'm being looked at by everyone here. And then when you're looking down the lens, and that's a lot more of a direct relationship with that thought. I think, maybe the fact that we got to get so much closer to the crew and to Jomo that kind of maybe remove some of that judgment from the camera a little bit, self-judgment.
Wow, that's such a great point. Yeah, I'm thinking about like the moments where like one of us were on camera. On the opposite side, you have the camera, you have Jomo, you have like me hiding behind, and then you've got like other crew members.
Like Kirby, like with his.
You got other like, so close and so present in the scene as well. And thank goodness we got so close to them so that there was no like fear in jumping into like scenes and being vulnerable and doing, because it was like it's kind of like I was having a relationship with another actor and being like, I trust you, I feel safe here, I can I can do all this to the camera and do everything that I need to do and know that you guys are there and not have to worry about being I don't know if it's the right word, but being like perceived, but I don't have to like really worry about like your presence intruding on this moment. Wow, thank you for bringing that up. That I didn't even realize that that's kind of a part of it.
I think in all aspects of the actor's work, the crew and the energy of the crew affects the actor. Of course, the actor is trained to not let it affect them, but it does, I think. But in this case, it's even more important, I guess, is what you're saying, that the energy was a certain way. Do you think that RaMell had that talk with people, where saying like, this is of the utmost importance now that we have this energy that they are receiving, because it's so important the way we're shooting this? Or is that just something that was like imparted from him just by example? I mean, this affected you guys in a positive way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he directly briefed people. I doubt it, but maybe. But I think it's what you're saying. It's just his energy as a person. I think he's so open and so curious and so collaborative and wants everyone to be a part of it, that everyone then reacts and responds to that. And he's just so like, his, like I think you were saying earlier, his confidence is just like infectious.
Yeah.
So everyone responds to that, and they're like, and everyone shows up and is there for one another, and also is there to make this thing, and it becomes like this harmonious, lovely thing that just magically kind of comes together without things. Yeah.
Man, it's
And it
crazy.
can so easily fall apart all over the or I've just at least experienced it not easily coming together other times. You're like, I guess we'll still do the thing, but obviously there's things happening. There's like people are stressed out, but I guess we're still doing this. We're having fun making a movie still, I guess.
Before this film, in your other work, what directorial input helped you? And what did RaMell give you that directorially that helped you in this process?
At least, not to say that I hadn't experienced it before, but I think the first time that I experienced it and was really aware of it and how aware of it and appreciative of it was freedom. And like he didn't have like his hand like over like our heads and like telling us exactly what to do, how to feel. Like, think in terms of the relationship between Turner and Elwood, he did a pretty good job at like reminding us of where they are, the stages of, maybe they're not that close yet. Let's keep that in mind for this moment. But otherwise, it felt like he was like, whatever you've got for Elwood is like, I'm for it. And that felt really nice. It instilled me with a confidence, and it was like, oh, okay. It was kind of like it was encouraging, and it made me feel like, oh, like I can do this. Like I'm capable of doing something like this in like in a prominent role. I have what it takes to do this, and I can trust my instincts, and I can also trust him to, if he does have something to say, I know with all the freedom that he's given me, I'm more receptive to like, all right, yeah, if we've got to work on something or tweak on something, like let's talk about it and figure it out. What I think I'm learning works for me is just collaboration. I think freedom, of course, being freedom and to go and play and figure it out. But I also really enjoy collaboration, like sitting down, and it's like, if you want to talk about maybe the direction that a scene is going in, or bouncing ideas off of, maybe if I've got like a view on what's happening with the character and there's an opposing view, there's a different view from a director. Yeah. I would love to sit down and like talk about it rather than be like just told like, no. No, you have to be doing this, or you should be doing this. Because there's no play. I think Brandon was kind of mentioning that there's no play in that. It's just kind of like being a bit of a puppet. So I think that so much of this is exploration. And so being with a director that I think encourages that through collaboration is what I want to continue to experience.
Another thing that like was so lovely about working with RaMell is I guess an openness. He felt available and honest. So I mean, I know like a lot of people do kind of show, like, some people show up to make a film and like everyone's just kind of doing a job and fulfilling a role, and like they put on their professional hat, they do this thing, and then they go home and they are themselves again. But I think the films that I want to make and the people that I would like to explore with is when they are also bringing their whole selves to this thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a job that they're showing up to. Mm-hmm. And I think that invites me into, I don't know, then we get to make this movie, but we also get to be humans together. And RaMell was so, available and honest with like, not just his words, but with his presence. And then it made me feel like, it was more than just a means to a product, a means to an end. And it was an actual experience, an actual moment we were sharing, an actual exploration. And I think whether it be the director or anybody involved in just a collaborative process, I think that's one of the biggest things that I think invites me in.
Ethan Herisse, Brandon Wilson, I'm a big fan of you guys now. I want you to come back on this show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.